Well, I've been a professional brewer for 16 years. Graduated in 2006 with an engineering degree. Was home brewing at the time. And, back then, a little over 1,000 breweries, and graduated. Really didn't want to get into engineering. Kind of had a aspiration to run a small business, and thought running a craft brewery would be a fun venture. And
what year was this?
2006.
Well, you were home brewing.
I was home brewing before that.
It was not good beer.
And
I mean, it was a good start, but
yeah, we were doing like IPAs and browns primarily. And it was just kind of a couple of us guys from college that were doing it. And then when I graduated college, I volunteered at a local brewery called Lake Superior Brewing out of Duluth there. I volunteered there about 30, 40 hours a week, did a side job to actually pay the bills. And then I got hired on officially in like the winter of 2007. And from there, took over a small little brewery in Superior, Wisconsin for 5 years. Went through the Siebel program in 2009. Worked for Founders from 2012 to 2015. Deschutes from 2015 to 2017. And then did startups from basically between 2017 and 2020.
You guys have really made the most of this space.
Yes, we have. We've done everything that we possibly can to get everything in here. That's for sure. That's where a lot of the experience.
So like my first 5 years, I was running a small brewery in northern Minnesota. I had worked out under a couple guys that had been in the industry for a few years, but never had went from being home brewers to kind of running local breweries. And so after 5 years, I realized I had plateaued kind of being in my own little bubble, and I wasn't working under anybody or, kind of learning from anybody other than myself.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I kind of wanted to get away from small business and go corporate. And so at that point, I had targeted about 10 breweries across the states, from like Sierra Nevada, Deschutes, Founders, Dogfish Head, and pretty much just kind of like targeted just very specific ones that I wanted to go to work for. And that's how I ended up getting a job at Founders.
Well, you did that really uniquely too, because you had brewed a barley wine, and then he made a label that was his resume. And then he sent out this barley wine to all these different breweries.
Wow.
And no clue what it was even going to taste like when it came out of that bottle, but yeah. No, for sure. And I think it's good too, because my perspective is like a little bit one-off. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes that can be easier to see things when you're not the person who's in the middle of the drama or of the actual trade.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we really learned moving around is that people want community and people want authenticity in whatever you're creating. Mm-hmm. And so the places that we were at that had those kind of vibes were really successful. Founders is a perfect example of that. I mean, they that's their whole motto, basically. Like, they were going to get shut down, and then they made a beer that they liked instead of making beer that they thought everybody else liked. That was the Dirty Bastard. It's one of their huge beers. Here we are, right? So I think just really learning that, even from a really larger brewery like Founders down to a smaller one that you worked at called Craft Kitchen in Bend, Oregon. So I think just authenticity and really ensuring that we are putting our best foot forward. You know, like not messing around and making a beer that's like okay, or, you know, not really, yeah.
I think that, you know, I'm from kind of like a second generation of craft brewers. Got my start in the mid 2000s when things are kind of ramping back up. And for me, a craft beer experience has always been about diversity and you know, variety. And I think that as things have changed, and as the market's gotten saturated, it kind of leaves brewers with sometimes limited options, and sometimes going more niche or very, you know, specific to a style, or that kind of is a way to distinguish yourself. And so for me, I never found myself inspired by one particular style, and so I've always been a little bit more true to that authentic American craft beer experience, where you're getting a mix of traditional and contemporary.
No, but you also hit on a point, because I'm a woman and I've been in the beer industry, at least adjacent to it, for 15 years or so. And there's not quite a lot of places that are made for me. And so I really wanted to make sure that with the use of natural things, plants, woods, like old things, that's really comfortable and it's really grounding, and that feels like that creates a really safe place for everybody. And really it creates a safe place for women to come.
Was that built into the ethos of this place?
100%.
Well, I mean, but see, your balance, that's a great thing, is that because, you know, you're a family, you have a family, but you're also keeping all that integrated with the business, you know, and that's the hardest thing to do for anybody.
Totally.
Is balance, you know, but it sounds like you're doing it, and you're doing it your way.
Yeah.
Which is important. Can you talk about the importance of that? Because that probably went from the business strategies to everything else. So.
Yeah. I think for me, so I'm a yogi, right? I started teaching yoga 15 or so years ago. I'm not currently teaching yoga at the moment, but one thing about what I really learned is that when you put yourself into alignment in your body, the rest of the pose will take over, right? So what that means to me when I applicate that to other parts of my life is that we're doing what we think is best for our community. We're doing what we think is best for beer styles. When we're in alignment, everything seems to be falling into place. Right? Our employee Liz just walked in the door, and she's somebody who just came into our life. Like, we knew her 20 years ago, and we saw her at a Red Rocks concert this last summer, and we just connected again, and then here we are, and she's...
So it's about the right people.
It's about the right people. It's about putting yourself in the right situation so that you can definitely benefit from what your energy is putting out into the world. I think that sounds really cheesy, but it's really true. And it doesn't...
Usually the cheesiest things are the most authentic things.
It's so true, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah.
So it feels like that's just kind of the way to do it. So when things don't feel right, then we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
No matter if that's what everyone else is doing, let's say.